We just have a quick question here from Paul asking us whether we use any type of strength meters to gauge the strength of currencies versus the overall sentiment. So we do use one, Paul. The one that we normally use is the Zenith platform. You can see this screen that we're seeing is basically on the left-hand side. We have equity futures, Americas, Europe, as well as Asia Pac. Below that, we have commodities, and then looking at a few ETFs as well, and then bond yields. And then on the right-hand side, we have a currency one that we've set up, which is basically, we've set it up in a way that the currency we want to look is always going to be the base. So we have the Aussie, CAD, Kiwi, Swiss, Yen, Euro, Pound, and US dollar. You can obviously do this for more currencies if you want. But this gives us a very clear gauge in terms of which currencies are leading the pack to the upside and which ones are leading the pack to the downside. So on the screen, just by looking at red and green, we can see weakness across the board for the Aussie, CAD, Kiwi, and the Euro. And we're seeing strength across the board for the Swiss, the Japanese yen, the pound, as well as the US dollar. So we do use Zenith, but there's a couple of free sources that you can use that will give you the exact same information like the ones that we use on Zenith. A couple of examples there would be, the first one is investing.com. You can actually set up a currency portfolio for yourself, and we've built it the exact same way like we've done in Zenith. So you can also see we've basically just compared the base currencies with the quote currencies to make sure that we're always looking at the right currencies when we want to gauge the overall strength. And you can see a similar view there: Aussie, CAD, Kiwi weakness. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag in the yen data. I'm not sure why that is. Also seeing strength in the Swiss and the pound, as well as the dollar, just like we saw on the Zenith one. Then you can also use finviz.com. If you go to their Forex section, they have a one-day relative performance measure that you can use. And if we just compare what we've just seen in terms, we can just move just now. If we just compare this with what we saw on the Zenith, if we just quickly open that up, we can see leading the pack to the downside, we have the Aussie. Leading to the upside is the pound. And if we just compare that with Finviz, we can see Aussie to the downside, pound to the upside. And then we also see weakness in the CAD, the Euro, and the Kiwi. So there's a couple of ones that you can use. There's also a few other paid sources that specifically looks at strength meters like charts and all that. But I mean, I'm sure it can be useful in some senses, but it's not really something we look at from a trading perspective. We just use it to gauge the overall strength and seeing whether what we are expecting to see based on the sentiment and the fundamentals, whether that is playing out in terms of the actual strength and weakness that we're seeing in the currency. So we won't ever use this as a trade idea, for example. So if there's no sentiment or any fundamentals driving a pair, but we see, the Aussie is strong and the Swiss is or weak and strong, we don't just pair them and trade them just because they're strong and weak. We'll always want a sentiment and a fundamental reason for why it should be strong or weak, and then just use this as a gauge to see whether the market is corresponding to that particular sentiment. So I hope that helps there, Paul. Any other questions, just let us know.